to Tyro with someone we haven't had on for a while, Mr. Manpenny. Welcome back.
Hey, I'm back.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Now, ever since you decided to get in contact with me to get on Planet Tyro to share your opinions, there was one title, actually the first title you profusely demanded we speak about that we haven't for a reason, I'll get into people, is The Wire.
Yes.
Now, the reason why a year ago, actually more than a year ago, you want to speak about The Wire on here. The reason why I stopped us from doing that is because I wanted you to watch The Shield, because in my opinion, The Wire and The Shield are two of the most iconic cop dramas ever made, and people really wide acclaim.
I'd say iconic cop dramas of the 2000s.
Yeah.
Ever made.
True. That's true. That's a good point. We get flamed in the comments as well. And I wanted us to do a double recording for each, but it doesn't matter. And on top of that, we have got requests by some viewers and some commenters that they want us to talk about The Wire.
Thank you,
so
fans.
Why delay this whole thing because of The Shield? You're watching The Shield. We'll get to
I am watching The Shield, so yeah.
We will get to The Shield in the future, but Wire time.
It's Wire time.
You guys wanted it, and now we're going to talk about The Wire. And guys, I'm going to be looking at my iPad because we can go and talk about The Wire for fucking forever.
Forever and a day.
It's a well-loved show. We both enjoy it. That's not a spoiler. We both really think it's great.
Yeah.
And this could go on for a long time. We're going to try to keep it short. 15-20 minutes. We'll try to cap it off. I'll try to edit it down. But to do this, I'm going to be asking a series of questions for Manpins. We'll both get our takes on it. And I feel like these questions are going to cover the scope of the things that we want to hit on, things that people often ask, things that people often debate out there. And at the end, we'll also do like a round of anything we want to throw in at the end. So hopefully we'll just cover everything. But just in case that you haven't watched The Wire and you don't know what it's about, shame on you. No, not shame on you, but just in case, here's a brief synopsis coming from this is what The Wire is about. I've written this short little blurb. So, The Wire is basically about, it centers on the dreary city of Baltimore, the rise of crime, the rise of the drug dealing, and how the cops and police are trying to handle the crime and the drug dealing in this city. And it's initially, the core of it is dealing with the drugs, the black community. The scope of it gets a lot wider with politics, with education, but it's mostly set on this city, deals with corruption and the drug dealers. A lot of people call it a cops versus robbers show.
That's being too generalised. That's too generalisation.
Mm-hmm.
To quote Charlie Brooker, it's like saying The Godfather is about some dodgy Italians. You can't really say that.
So how would you say what The Wire's about in your...
The Wire, how I would say The Wire is, it is something that I've never seen before in American TV.
As a synopsis.
Oh, as a synopsis? It's basically, as you said, it's basically about the battle between cops and robbers in the drug trade. But the scope is so much wider. It goes into the working class, goes into the middle class, goes to the political ruling system. It goes into other hierarchies as well. Goes into the underclass, goes into schools, goes into the media. There's so many aspects to it. Yeah. It's not how I would say, it's not your typical rise and fall of an individual, like Shakespearean tragedy, like the Breaking Bads of this world or the Mad Men's of this world. It's more Dickensian. It deals with society in general and how these little pawns or these little people are just trying to deal with their hierarchies and how they're dealing with the political intrigue, trying to get up the levels of either the drug trade or the police trade or even the media itself. And there's so many different facets to it. It's so fascinating to watch.
And I'm always going to cut him off, people, so there's still synergy here. It was made in 2002, it ran for 5 seasons, 2002-2008. Yeah. It was produced by HBO. It's got a whole myriad of characters that we don't have time to get into individually, even though we might highlight some here and there.
Yeah.
But to start things off on the questions, the first question is going to be, and I'm going to pose it towards you, is how did you first hear about Against the Wire?
So a long time ago, like in Britain, I read The Guardian, and every now and then The Guardian always has this kind of, you've got to watch this TV show, it's one of the best TV shows you have to watch, and this was The Wire. And I was just like, hold on,
What year was this, by the way?
This was, I think it's like 2005, 2006. I think it was 2005, 2006. I just came out of university, I was just doing my first job straight out of university. And the Guardian was like, you've got to watch The Wire, it's the best thing you've ever seen, da-da-da-da. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, these are just media people just saying media stuff. And then Charlie Brooker said the same thing as well. I like watching Charlie Brooker and I enjoy his points of view, and he was saying the same thing as well. And I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Then my friend, Craig Scott, Scottish friend of mine, he said, and a real hip-hop fan as well, he said to me, dude, you need to see The Wire. You have to watch The Wire. And I said, okay, if my friend is saying I need to watch The Wire, and I've only known him for a little while, but I trust his judgment. I sat down and watched it, and I was like, you know what, this is a really good show. And I remember watching it on TV, and I thought, fuck this, I'm going to get me the DVD set and just sit down. Instead of just staying up late watching it on the BBC, I'm just going to get the DVD set and just sit down and watch it. And I loved every minute of it.
Did you power watch it as well? Did you go for
I binged it. I didn't binge watch it, but I was like, buy one DVD set, watch it. And I was with flatmates at the time.
Me, it was a wide acclaimed show. It was, even back in the day, I had a list of shows that I'd watch, even though I do that pretty much now. And I always knew The Wire was a good cop drama. One of my friends, Tio, you might be watching Tio. He watched it, he was like, you have to watch this, D. You have to watch this, it's fucking awesome. And I was like, oh God. Since he can't stop shutting his mouth, yapping about it, I have to watch it. And I watched it around the same time. And by the time I watched it, it was already done. I watched, actually, the last season hadn't aired. I remember I watched it just before the last season aired. And I remember the 4th season, I was like, oh, I can't wait for the last season. And I watched it all at once as well. It was very enlightening. And that's basically it. So I'm going to move on to the next question.
Sure.
Do you really think The Wire is one of the greatest shows ever made, and why? And I know it's a question I should leave to later, but before we get into it, I want to ask that question right now.
Yes. I think The Wire is I don't want to say it's perfect, but I will say it's almost close to being perfect, to be honest. It's one of the best dramas I've ever seen.
Okay.
I am not a guy who watches a lot of dramas, to be brutally honest.
Okay.
I watched the Breaking Bad, and I enjoyed it. And yes, I've watched. I'm starting to watch Sopranos, and trying to get into Mad Men and Shield as well.
Yeah.
But The Wire is, and as I said before, and I'll use this phrase again.
Yeah.
Whereas every other TV show, like your Breaking Bad, your Shields, your Mad Men's, your Sopranos, is the rise and fall, the Shakespearean tragedy, the rise and fall of the main characters and the sub characters that kind of fall between them. That's fine and all. The Wire is a Dickensian story about the hierarchy and the city itself.
Yeah.
The great thing about The Wire is it wasn't set in like LA or something beautiful something like popular like LA or Chicago or New York or something else. It was Baltimore.
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows much about Baltimore. Yeah, Baltimore.
We're British as well, so
we're British. Geographically, Baltimore is in between Washington DC and New York. There isn't that much going on in Baltimore, and that's the great thing about it. There was no main characters. There wasn't a character that we have to follow all the time.
Yeah.
At first, you kind of sit there going like, Jimmy McNulty is our avatar. He isn't. You may think he is because,
he's a cop.
He's a cop.
And cops are good.
He's a cop, and cops are good. And I'm going to say something a bit controversial. He's white, and there's not a lot of people who would watch it who is also...
It's not a controversial, it's fact. He's white.
He's white, but then if people who are not watching it, if people who are not watching it who are who'll take away from that, they'll be like, that's our avatar because he's the only white guy there that we need to follow.
Based on other cop shows, it's the trend.
Yeah.
So it's not a hard thing to... But
the great thing about it is, it's the great ensemble show. Nobody is higher or lower in the kind of totem pole of who's the lead character. In fact, I think the lead character of the whole show is the city of Baltimore itself.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
I think because it shows everything about Baltimore, the highs, the lows, the middle class, the ruling class, the underclass, the hierarchies of there, the police system, the drug system, the media, the politics.
Well, let me jump in and say, no, I'm gonna, because my answer is pretty much similar to yours. The scope of the show is what makes the show so great. It's a show that kind of starts off small. You think it's just gonna be a show about these kind of black guys doing drugs and these cops going after them. But every season, the show grows in scope and it hits on more elements, or more social elements. It becomes more engrossing. The characters are great. The drug trade is interesting. The cops, what they're doing to catch these people, are very interesting, engrossing. It's not all black and white. The people, what they're doing, so many things are so applicable to society in America and things that are going on in crime. The reason why, to me, is so important to television is it just hits on so many things that are so enlightening to so many different people, class, race, type, that's what makes the show. And it's executed so fucking well which is why the show, to me, is one of the greatest.
I'll give you a fact. President Obama has quoted before he got elected in his first term as president. He said, "My favorite TV show is The Wire, and the favorite character I like is Omar Lassol." And he said because it's so complex, it deals with everything that no other Hollywood kind of dramas would deal with. And I'm sitting there going like, yes, I totally agree with everything he just said. This is one of the best dramas I've seen. And it's not perfect, but nothing is. But this is one of the best dramas I've seen in a while.
So moving on to the next question, and again, guys, we could have done this a little bit more pedestrian and gone through the review and all that. But you ask us questions, and people want our opinions. And so here's another question. It's a very general question, but do we think it's pretty much the same kind of question we got before? Do we think The Wire is overrated, and is it rated in like your personal list of best shows? Because everyone. And I mean almost everyone, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, every single rating site, it is above a 9. Ironically, here's some fun facts. The show only got nominated for like two Emmys, and I think that was based on episodes. It wasn't even based on like...
so it wasn't based on series. It was one of those things, it was up against like, I think, something stupid like Desperate Housewives or Sopranos, which Sopranos is great. So, but like Desperate Housewives, but something kind of very middling in terms of a drama. So it was never going to get there. But I think David Simon did say this, it's like, it's a show full of black people. It was never going to win an Emmy because you were never going to show it in Middle America. The Middle America was never going to watch it.
But over time now.
It's got
such high acclaim. Everyone has called it an absolute masterpiece. And because people call me a critical, snobbish son of a bitch on so many things, I don't think it's overrated. But believe it or not, I'll be controversial and say it's actually not in my top shows of all time. And let me explain what I mean by this. You can appreciate something like a piece of art and say that's the best drawn, illustrated art I've ever seen, but that might not be your personal favourite. I observe The Wire as a great, masterful story that hits on all these topics and all these themes and all these characters, and it's totally mind-blowingly great storytelling. Personally, it's not my favourite show because when I finished watching it, it had an effect on me and I took something away from it. But I wouldn't put this as negative against the show. It's not something I need to go back on. I don't need to go back and watch The Wire again. I will remember certain scenes, I watch certain scenes, but for me it's like, this is an important show, this is a great show, and in terms, if you look at it analytically, I can say that this is one of the best constructed, executed, characterized shows I've ever seen. But personally, it's not in my favourite list of shows, but it is one of the best shows I think I've ever seen. And I know people might think that, I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too, but I think you can put that differentiation down.
I think I understand this point. The Wire is one of those TV shows where, the scope is amazing and how it hits everything is really, really good. But, and I think, I'm going to quote once again David Simon, like paraphrasing, he said, this isn't for TV. This isn't normal TV to watch. This isn't episodic. This isn't like, we're going to deal with a crime every day. You have to follow the story from beginning to end. There's only one, I think the second episode of the first season, they did a wrap-up at the beginning, like a recap at the beginning. That's it. If you don't follow the show, forget it. And that's the thing, they didn't treat, like, The Wire didn't treat its viewers as idiots or as children. They said, you're adults, this is a TV show, it's going to be complex, it's going to be gritty. Here you go, enjoy. And that's what I loved about it. It was just like, we're adults and this is a great TV show to watch. And that's why I've never seen anything like this. Now, I know there's a lot of people like, what about True Detective? What about, because we're living in the second golden age of television, like your True Detectives, your Mad Men's, your Breaking Bads, your, I'm thinking of the other
list goes on, Hannibal. There's so many
Hannibal, there's so more. I'm just like, but to me, and this is my opinion, The Wire will always be the bar that, raised it for everybody else. Like, Sopranos raised it because it was at the beginning. Now the bar's been raised again by The Wire.
But does that mean it's in your favourite shows list of all time? That's
yes, it is.
Is it your number one show of all time?
If it's not, I'm not a drama man, but it's one of my favourite dramas of all time. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't say it's my favourite programme of all time. It's one of my favourite dramas of all time.
Next question. Not really a question per se. So if you notice, and if you haven't watched The Wire, you wouldn't notice, the cast and the characters have moved on to do great things. I mean, it's got a great ensemble cast, we're saying, and a lot of the actors, especially I would say Idris Elba, is one of the shining pillars of the show. Stringer Bell, he's evolved into a Hollywood movie star, one of the best well-known black actors in the world, which is awesome. So people are saying that what are our best characters and do you really love the characterization? I guess they just want to speak about the characters without going on for hours.
Okay. Best characters, obviously Idris Elba as Stringer Bell.
Yeah.
He's just so... He wouldn't be out of place in Wall Street, but he's just like the second, like he is the CFO to this kind of drug trade, like this of the drug not drug world, is the gang that he's in. He's like the second in command, but he's so business minded, so relaxed, and so kind of like he's just uncanny. He's just so like that. He's one of my favourite characters. Another favourite character is Omar Little. The Man by Michael K. Williams, also known as Chalky White in Boardwalk Empire.
I wish he moved on to be bigger, but he's kind of...
but he's a character actor. He's one of those character actors. He's never going to make it huge. He's never going to have the show... He's never going to release a movie on his own. But he's a character actor, and I like that.
He's getting a lot more parts, though.
Yeah, but he... As Omar, it's so complex. Why everybody else, every other character in the show is kind of stuck by the hierarchies of everything else, like the hierarchy of the police force, or the hierarchy of the drug trade, or the hierarchy of the political system, whatever. He is kind of like the Robin Hood. He's like, he flows in the wind. He's a complex character. He robs the drug dealers to give to the poor.
Yeah.
He's
the Robin Hood, the Black Robin Hood.
Literally the Black Robin Hood. He is he's a black homosexual in the streets, which is very unheard of.
Yeah.
So he's ostracized from that.
Yeah.
Violence like no one else can.
Yeah.
But he doesn't swear. It's against his rules. He has he has his own rules, and I love that aspect to it. He's a man who just has his own rules and has his own morals, and I like it. It's such a complex character. Those are two characters. Obviously, Bunk Moreland and Jimmy McNulty, played by Wendell Pierce and Dominic West. A great double act in a way. And the two detectives. Jimmy McNulty is I'm gonna fucking get this done before, and he'll just self-destruct, but he just wants to get it done. He's just hot-headed, tempered. He's a guy full of vices, full of flaws. But he wants to get the job done, and he's a good cop. Like he's a decent enough cop. Same with Bunk as well, but Bunk is more level-headed, like suited, but can get really, really drunk. Yeah. On the flip side, there's another character I really love. It's called Lester Freeman, played by Clark Peters. Mm-hmm. Shall I talk about how?
Yeah, because you've echoed everything I've said, and he is my second favorite character. I always like the older, wiser, calmer characters. And you've got an interesting little story.
Yeah. So I was just gonna say, in the height of my massive love for The Wire, I was in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, I think a couple of years ago. I can't remember when. And I remembered I was in one end of Edinburgh, really, really drunk. I had to walk to the other end, and I walked through the other belly, and I saw literally a poster saying Clark Peters, one night only, or one day only, playing here. And it was the next day. And I said to myself, remember that. And I was really drunk, so remember that, because you do not want to forget. You don't want to miss this moment. I just said, remember this. So I remembered it, and I just went, okay, went to the hotel, slept, woke up really early, stinking hangover, got to the ticket office, bought the ticket, went there, sat down, waited. I saw this famous comedian called Lucy Porter. I sat down, we had a bit of a chit chat, and I went, all right, how you doing? So, alright Lucy, how you doing? I just said to her, what are you doing here? I said, I'm doing the show with Clark Peters, I'm going to be interviewing him. I thought, that's pretty cool. I'm just waiting for him. And I said, okay, I'm waiting to see the show. And then she said, there's Clark Peters now, do you want to say hello to him? I'm like, yes I do.
So you actually got to meet the man.
I got to meet the man himself.
You see the picture on the screen right now.
Yeah, and I got to meet the man himself. And as you can see from the picture, I look really happy, but I was so hungover.
Yeah.
And I was glad I was so hungover, because if I had met him in a sober state, I would have been so fanboyish. He would have been like, this guy's a bit crazy. But I was so hungover, I was just like, man, you are fucking cool. Like I said, you are too cool for school, my friend.
I can't believe you met someone from the Y in person.
You too. Dude, you have no belief. Because once I took that picture, and this was in the height of the Y. This is when the Y was just about to end, and everyone on my Facebook page was like, "Oh my god, you met Lester Freeman, you met the guy from the Y," and I was just like, "Yes, I did." And he was the nicest guy. He was a really nice man. And there's one more character that I do love, and that's Bubbles. Bubbles, the junkie. At the beginning of the show, he was a junkie. He was like a grifter and everything else. but I loved his kind of change and how he kind of got better. His was a Shakespearean tragedy. His kind of little kind of sideline story was the Shakespearean tragedy. He didn't rise. He was just falling and falling and rised again, then fell again.
You met him. Really? He was in the anime combo because he was in the episode of Heroes. If you watch Heroes, he was only, I think, he had a teleportation power.
Yeah.
And he came. I went there with my nephew and my sister, and the only reason I didn't go was because when they had a line to see him and they asked to pay £20. Yeah. So I'm not gonna pay to see. I thought it was bad taste, but I know how it is and whatever. So let me just jump in and say I'm not gonna go over my own like everything he said. I agree with completely. They're my favorite characters. My only other character I really liked, which is one of the most. You can't say despicable because he's what he is. It's goddamn Marlo. Oh. This kid is some terror. I don't think I've ever been so scared. That face.
My name is my name.
That kid, that face, such a cold ass motherfucking kid who terrorizes and does some really big damage, destruction, and just awesome drug kingpin shit through the show. Never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a person by their age. And I could speak about this kid for hours, but I just want to say, and we've got to change the subject now because we're on to but I just want to say everything Manfred said, and Marlo, great actor. He was in Heroes as well as a villain. I don't know if you remember, he was this fear.
After the first season of Heroes, I was like,
he came pretty much there. But yeah, we can go on forever and ever, but we got to move on. So, but people, on Planet Tyro, when we have a discussion, we like to be critical. And now we're going to get a little controversial.
Okay, let's do it.
And I'm going to ask, for all the Wire being so great, what's not so great about the Wire? What are the negatives that we see in the Wire?